We took a chance last year and attended a show, bit of a different show, not a trade show or a craft fair, but this was a show aimed at horsey people, the Iberian Horse Show. I'll put a link to it down below in the description. A fantastic event if you're into horses in any way, shape or form. Excuse my terminology, I'm not. Then this is the show for you to go for. The things they get these animals to do, unbelievable. Anyway, back to the reason for the video. So it turned out to be the most successful show we've ever attended. The organizer of the show contacted us and asked if we could take the images that they had of these incredible animals and engrave them into some chopping boards. Well, I decided to go for some slate table mats and coasters instead. And like I say, amazing reaction from people, incredibly popular. So this year I've got new images which I've engraved into the slate. And if you want to know how, I'll put a link below to another video I've done showing you exactly how to do that. That's not what this video is about. This video is about framing them, so taking it to the next level, if you like, making them a little bit more special for people and a little bit something different to show on the stand as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to go about making frames for these beautiful creations of mine. So step number one, sizing of the timber. The timber I'm going to use, the frame size I want is 50mm, so it's a nice good solid frame. And I'm going to rebate this slate into that frame by 8mm each side. So initially, if I allow the thickness of the timber on the outside, bear in mind that it's going to sit in 8mm, that's going to give me 16mm to play with. So the slate is 300mm, 50mm each side, 400mm. I'm going to go a bit more and have 410mm each side, or for the length rather, and the same on the width. It's 200mm. So if I allow the full 50mm plus 10, so I want two pieces 410mm long and two pieces 310mm long. Now as for the width of it, this piece of slate is about 6mm thick. I'm going to cut a piece at 20mm, which is going to give me 7mm top and bottom, which will be enough for me to put a nice little bevel on the inside and the outside edge, just to add that little bit of detail. So 20mm, 410mm, 310mm. Now I've already planed and squared my timber, so I can get straight to ripping. I'm going to rip some maple down and some walnut so that people can choose between a lighter coloured frame or a darker coloured frame. I'll run them all down through the drum sander first to get rid of any blade marks. And then I'll sand them to 120 grit and 180 grit so that I've got the minimum left to do when I start to assemble them. Now I should have said earlier, if you've got the chance, once you know your measurements, see if you can find a piece that's long enough for you to cut all four out of consecutively, so that when you come to this bit, you can make it look as if the grain is wrapping around. I didn't have a piece long enough, so I've now got to try and work out the best possible way for the grain to run. This bit is going to be problematic. No, that's going to look pretty good. So I'm going to mark this front, And if I go like this, and that one's going to have to be this way, then I can make that look, if you follow, as if it wraps around. So I'm going to do that with all of them now. So now I know which bits are going together. I can mark where I want a rough cut. So if I take a 400 and a 300, so we'll call this, if that's number 1, that's going to be a 300. Number 2, that's going to be number 3. That's a 400. That's my cut mark. That's my cut mark. And that's going to be 300 and a 400. And I'm just going to straight cut these. So I've got the oversized pieces, and then I can cut my miters. But before I start cutting all the pieces up into their rough sizes, I'm going to write the slot that I need to take the slate, and I'm also going to put the bevels on. I'm going to do both at the router table, and because I've already got a straight cutter in the table, I'm going to do that one first. With the router table, it doesn't really matter which way round I do it. If I was doing it with a handheld, then I would definitely go for the bevels first. If I do the slot first, then cut the bevels afterwards, I stand the chance of the bearing guiding the router bit to cut the bevels dropping into the slot, if you follow. So I'm going dead center based on eyeballing it. I'm not particularly bothered if it's a fracco out, because I'm going to keep all of my pieces with the front face towards me. Now for the bevel, the little chamfer that I want on each piece, I'm going to swap out the bit in the router table for a standard 45-degree bearing guided chamfer bit, angle cutting bit. Obviously I don't need the bearing because of the fence on the router table, but it's the only bit I've got. In case you're wondering, this is the Orc Tools router, spindle router, and Incra Jesson rebranded router lift from Woodworker's Workshop. I absolutely love the router lift. It's beautifully smooth, very accurate, and the router's okay. The only bit I don't like about it is the fact that the supplied spanners are a dreadful fit. They're really loose, and I usually end up slipping and gouging my knuckles. So now that I've got my channel cut, my chamfers cut, I'm going to cut them to rough length, all of them, and then pile them up in the order that I need them to be, and then I can cut the miters. Okay, so I'm ready to cut the miters, and the first thing I need to do is to work out the exact size that I need to go around the slate. So to do that, I'm going to use this walnut because it's got very minimal figure on it. And it doesn't really matter where I cut the miters to. And I also want to prove that the miter saw setting that I've got it on, even though it's a factory set 45, I just want to prove for peace of mind that it is actually 45 degrees. So I've got my miter saw preset to 45 degrees. I've also fitted my sacrificial fence, which allows me to use these micro jig clamps so that I can clamp a stop in place and guarantee that the two 400s are going to be exactly the same size, and the 300s, etc., anywhere along the board I want. So that's nice and clamped nice and firmly, and I'm good to go. So like I said, I'm going to cut oversized first and just prove it's at 45. So I'm just going to use some tape to hold them together to prove the joint, and stand them up against my straight edge so I know I've got them in line. All the joints have come together nice and tight, so it's a pretty good sign. And that looks beautiful. I'd go as far as to say perfect. So I'm ready for final sizing. Now my overcut piece is 5mm shy of meeting the frame. 4mm there, 5mm there, 4mm there. So the slate itself isn't perfectly square, so I'm going to have to allow a little bit. So if I've got a 5mm gap and I've also got an 8mm recess, that's a total of 13mm. So I think if I come down 11mm, that should give me enough of a bit of wiggle room to allow for the slate being not quite perfect. But I think to begin with, I'm going to reduce each piece by 10mm and then try the fit again. So I'll just use exactly the same approach that I did before. You probably noticed I should have said 10mm each end. Which is what I've now done. A bit of tape's come off. It's looking pretty good. Once again, I've forgotten to take another piece of tape off. I think that will be perfect. All the joints are still lovely and tight. Okay, so I can use these pieces as my templates to set my stop block to. And now it's just a case of cutting them all to size, and then we can do the glue up. And we're nearly there. So like I said, there isn't an awful lot of figure to worry about on these pieces, but I've laid them out the way I want them. On this walnut, I've got some tight bond dark glue that I'm going to use. And for the maple, I've just got some Type Bond 3. I just want a little dab on each. Too much, and I'm going to have it squirting out everywhere. And I'm going to put a bit in here and a bit in here, just to keep the slate in place. This is a bit precarious. While the tape's keeping everything in place, I can just pop my frame clamp on. Just apply a little bit of pressure while the glue goes off. Make sure we've stayed nice and square. Perfect. I'll give that an hour in the clamps, and then I can pop that one off, do the next one. With everything sanded, I'm now ready to apply the finish, and my choice of finish for this project is Plasticoat Clear Satin Finish Lacquer. Absolutely brilliant, love it. It's my go-to spray lacquer in an easy to use rattle can. What could be better? I'll put a link to this before. I'd love to give you a link to my Amazon affiliate page where you could buy it, but you can get it much cheaper at another place I found, which I don't have an affiliate link for, but I'll put that for you down below. So I've got my rudimentary little spray booth and a couple of bench cookies just to stand it off. And that's all there is to it. Super quick, super easy, and I think really quite impressive picture framing. The one thing I might do different on the next batch is try a different form of clamping, and I'm quite interested in trying one of those strong steel band type mitre clamps. I'll pop up a picture on the screen of the one I've been looking at, made by Felder, would you believe? But I'm quite interested in trying that, I think, although I don't like the idea of the damage it could cause around the outside of the frame. But who knows? Maybe I'll get one and do a little review on it if that may be of interest to you. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, thumbs up, like below, blah, blah, blah. Maybe even a subscribe. But hope to see you next time. Ta-ra.